Welcome to Inquirer Live. Thank you for joining us on a very special night. I'm Shemar Woods, Director of Digital Sports at the Philadelphia Inquirer. Before we start, let's quickly take care of some housekeeping. In partnership with the Philadelphia Union, we are streaming tonight on Inquirer.com, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and the Union's team website. You have the opportunity to ask questions at any point during tonight's conversation. If you'd like to submit a question, please head over to Inquirer.com/sportslive and enter your question in the comment section. That's Inquirer.com/sportslive. Tonight, we have the distinct privilege and honor of being joined by three game changers who have not only made an impact on the court and in their respective fields of play, but also outside the lines of play. Our first guest, Ray Gaddis, is a native of Indianapolis. He joined the Union in 2012, and that same year, he won the NAACP Image Award for Male Athlete of the Year. Mr. Gaddis is the Union's all-time leader in minutes played and a fierce leader in raising awareness around social justice in the sports world. Rodney McLeod is the starting safety for the Philadelphia Eagles and a Super Bowl champion. His accomplishments extend well beyond the football field as a co-founder of the Change Our Future Foundation. He was also a nominee for the 2020 NFL Walter Payton Man of the Year Award, the NFL's most prestigious award, which recognizes NFL players for their excellence on and off the field. And shortly, we'll be joined by Philly native and Basketball Hall of Fame player and coach Dawn Staley. She's kind enough to join us and take time away from the University of South Carolina's regular season, coming off Sunday's victory over Kentucky. And the legend is, of course, the head coach of the women's championship program and a three-time Olympic medalist. Rodney Ray, welcome to Inquirer Live, and thanks for joining us tonight.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm very excited about this conversation we're going to have tonight.
Likewise, very glad to be here. This is going to be great this evening.
Definitely excited as well. Now, a lot has transpired over the past year. To start tonight's conversation, bring us up to date on what's been happening in your lives in the age of COVID, a pandemic, and the country's reckoning on race.
All right, in your hands, Rodney. I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think a lot is going on currently for myself, battling back with an injury and focus on, getting back healthy after a torn ACL this season, but rehab's been off to a good start. I think, everything that 2020 kind of brought, it was very challenging, difficult, I think, for a lot of us out there, myself included. I think we all respectfully face our own challenges, whether you experienced the virus yourself, or, a loved one who did, the impact that it had on us being able to build and converse and see, loved ones. I think, all of that kind of put things in perspective and allowed us to really remember what it was like and value, I think, a lot of those things that we typically take for granted and kind of look over. So I think for me, it allowed me to really just appreciate a lot of the time that when I do get the opportunity to be with my parents or, my niece, really cherish that and be in the moment. And then I think, everything that also happened, part of the reason we're on this call here tonight and, the social injustice and unrest that, continue to take place in our society with George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and Breonna Taylor, that kind of led the charge and, grab people's attention. And I want to, I guess, thank COVID maybe for that because the world was so still and we had to focus on the issues that have existed for, a lot of us African Americans for centuries. And so, I think we have started to progress, but there's still, more work to be done. But I am encouraged by things that I saw in 2020, but, the fight doesn't end there. It has to continue in 2021, and we have to be just as committed as we were, just as angry as we were when, these acts initially happened, and just have to continue to fight lead the charge and kind of all do our part and play our role in all of this.
We're definitely going to get into the roles. And as you said, Rodney, there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. And we'll definitely discuss that tonight. Ray, quickly, catch us up on what's been happening in your life over the past year.
You know, I appreciate this opportunity. I just want to say this to be here this evening and speak on such a serious matter as social justice, especially for the African-American community and people of color. But like Rodney said, you know, 2020 was a year that was very eye-opening, but he touched on it a little bit, bringing a lot of people to a halt and a standstill. And, you know, for me, it was very eye-opening losing loved ones to COVID, losing my grandmother to COVID, how that affected our family, losing cousins to COVID. Just as, you know, Rodney said, you know, for African Americans, we were facing two pandemics. We were facing this pandemic with COVID-19, but also the continual birth of racism and injustice in America. But to say the least, you know, the Lord really blessed me to be a humanitarian award winner with a collective group of guys with Black Players That Change in Major League Soccer. He also allowed me to be the Jerry Yeagley Leadership Award recipient for individuals in the soccer community who have done great works. It's just been a blessed year. Just was up for my elder's license to be a pastor for a church. But a lot has changed this year, you know, just adjusting. In my hometown of Indianapolis, we're trying to build out some programming to create recreation and education for the young people. Try to create safe places for them to really release the necessary energy in a positive way, but also teach them that, you know, they're strong, they're beautiful, they're intelligent, and they can have a positive effect on society as well.
That's great. We're going to dive into that in tonight's conversation, Ray. So we'll definitely get to more of that and the efforts that you're making in the community in Indianapolis. But before we do, I want to bring on our honored our guest and Dawn Staley, who is joining us now. She's Philly native and Basketball Hall of Fame player and coach. And thank you so much for taking time away from the regular season, Coach Staley, to join us here tonight for this conversation.
Thank you. Thanks for having all of us.
It's a pleasure. And we're catching up with Ray and Rodney as far as what they've been up to over the last year. It's been a year that has been marked by COVID, a pandemic, civil unrest. Would you catch us up on what's been happening in your life?
I mean, I'm a coach, and when the pandemic first started, which was back in the first week of March, we had to just kind of walk our players through what that looked like. The pandemic took their ability to play in the NCAA tournament, something that, you know, as a child they look forward to, but it also, you know, put things in perspective. You know, we were still alive and well and not impacted by it in any way. Certainly not as over 500,000 people have died from this disease. You know, we play basketball, and sports is a way of for us to just kind of, you know, separate ourselves from reality at times. But then reality steps in and it tells us who's boss. So I've just been dealing with that, you know, over the past year. We've been navigating through that through the season. And fortunately for us, some of our players were impacted by it, but had no symptoms, and they turned out to be okay. But for the most part, our players are learning something that at a very young age that most of us didn't have to learn until later on. But sports gives us an opportunity to do this, is to be disciplined, in making sure that you're following the protocols. Certainly we can at times utilize sports for real life, but now we can utilize real life for sports, in that we have to be disciplined and we have to make sure that we stay out of harm's way. And that is taking away the very thing that we love to do, is to socialize, to be around people, to talk to people, to hug people, to kiss people, our loved ones. But we have to distance ourselves from doing that if we want to continue to play. And if we want to continue to play, which gives us a little reprieve from having to live it every single day. So I've been gracious that we've been able to have a season and navigate it through in a way that it hasn't been all fun, but it hasn't been all it hasn't been a place in which we are like, it's not life or death like it has been for some people. So we're learning to live through it, and we're writing our own story. So when this thing is over, hopefully we can learn some incredible lessons that we can pass on to other people, and how we got through.
Hoping that people can take away some valuable lessons from tonight's conversation. And tonight's discussion evolves around, I think, 3 parts: your personal perspective, your professional perspective, and also your views toward the future. Coach Staley, you mentioned how sometimes for some people this is a matter of life or death. And yesterday, Tuesday, marked the 1-year anniversary of Ahmaud Arbery's death. And his mother filed a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. Of course, we know Mr. Arbery wasn't the only unarmed Black man unjustly killed in 2020. And weeks after his death, Americans, and especially Black Americans, face a new threat with COVID-19. Now, in between now and then, you all have not shied away from raising awareness around the issues of racial justice and equality, and using your platforms to encourage everyone to vote in last November's election. We now have a new president and the first Black woman vice president in history in office. So I want to kick off this conversation, and I would like to go to you first, Coach Staley. Looking back at your personal experiences, what prepared you to take on this work as an advocate for social justice?
What prepared me is ironic. And I really didn't relive this until actually George Floyd death. And, I did a Players Tribune, and it just brought up, some of the things that my mother dealt with. A lot of people don't know, both parents were born and raised in the state of South Carolina, where I'm working. That was one of the reasons why I came back here. So my mother, who was becoming elderly, I could bring her back here, and all of her siblings are still here. But my mother left South Carolina at a very young age, I believe 13, because she had an incident. My grandmother, her mother, asked her to go to the store to purchase some meat. So the butcher ended up, my mother asked for the meat that she saw in the visible refrigerator. But the butcher went to the back and gave my mother some other meat from the back. And my mother, basically said she's not going to take that home. She wanted the meat that she saw, that she pointed out.
Right.
And the butcher was like, you're going to take this meat or you're not going to take the meat. But one thing I know, you're not welcome back here in this store. So my mother did not take the meat, went home, told her mother what happened. And basically, we knew what that meant. Like, you're not welcome here in this store. Black people back then knew that there was a target on my mom. So my grandmother immediately got my mother out of South Carolina and moved up north to Philadelphia, where she had to live with her godmother, who had already moved to Philadelphia. And it brought back that, like, what if my mother would have stayed here in South Carolina? Obviously, I probably wouldn't have been born, but, things like that escalate so very quickly, all because of wanting the freshest meat that she saw. So when you have to bring those stories back up in 2020 and 2021, and those things are still happening to a different degree. Now, my mother left, but, look what we have to deal with. Look what young people have to deal with. And I say this because I live my life. I'm old enough to have experienced just about anything but young people have to visibly see Black people, Black bodies losing their lives on social media, right in front of their eyes. How do we help them navigate through that? That's pretty hard, because these are answers to questions that we've had for hundreds of years, and they still haven't been answered yet. So, I mean, it's hard. It's hard, but what we do is we have to have these conversations. We have to allow our young people to speak and get their feelings out on the table, so they're able to navigate in a way that, you know, they're not holding it in. They're able to get it out, because we know what happens when you have to hold things in. Mental illness is it's real. Right. So places in which our players are able to do that, allowing them to grow up. I'm bringing this up. Our players are sitting during the national anthem, and that's bringing on, some backlash from people, but they're holding strong. They're holding strong to what they believe in. And I'm supporting them wholeheartedly, because they're young. They're in their formative years, and they should be able to stand up for what they see as young people as an injustice. So I'm just trying to do my part and keeping on supporting them and speaking what I need to speak when I need to, tweeting what I need to tweet when I need to, because it's really not for me. It's for the generations to come.
Ray, for you, what personal experiences prepared you to take on this work over the last year with everything we've dealt with as Black people in this country? Is there one moment that stands out for you?
Like the great Coach Staley said, just getting the vital information from my elders. I have some elders who are older than me, and they've seen some things that I haven't seen. My family's from the heart of Tennessee. They've seen a lot. They've had to experience a lot. But for me to fully understand that was listening to their testimony. And I think about how they haven't given up, and I think about how they continue to press on and continue to advocate that I may have the opportunities that I have now to even speak at this magnitude, or even to walk with my head high. Like Coach Staley said, I just think it's a continuation of continue to have to see the various killings, especially in my era with social media. Everything is just so readily available. She talked about trauma. You grow up seeing this type of stuff. I'm only 31, and you think about if it could be me, if it was me. I've been pulled over. I've been pulled over with my father on the way back to Philadelphia. We like to drive and spend that quality time together. But I think it was my own experiences as well that prepared me. Nothing's going to prepare you for the things that, we continue to see people endure more than the real experiences that we face. I went to West Virginia University, a good basketball university, both on the women's and men's program, but also in soccer and football as well. And being among my peers, I think that was eye-opening for me to know that outside that group, we better not wander too far. On campus, we was all right, but my life experiences prepared me and really pushed me, to this moment. I know me and Rodney was talking earlier, the things that we saw in 2020 aren't our first time seeing it. And Coach Staley said, I think that we need more prevention programs, and trauma programs being facilitated in the cities from the things that these children and or adults haven't necessarily addressed in their lives, but been holding in. We need a safe place for these type of things. But, my experiences are my own. And I know other people have the same testimonies and have been through the same thing. But, I just want to use this platform to be an advocate and to voice, marching in the streets in Indianapolis and seeing the likes of Tamika Catchings and George Hill, different individuals who have been in the city and are from the city right there alongside of me, but sharing the same stories. That really pushed me to know that I had we all come from a sports background, but had brothers and sisters to advocate with me, and I wasn't in this alone. But those experiences really pushed me to really, speak up, say various things, but also the support of my organization. It is it's lost in between sometimes. Not every organization is going to support their players on their social stances. That's just the reality. I'm not scared to say that, but I had an organization from the coach to the GM to the ownership. They spoke with me. They talked to me, you know, as long as I can handle the backlash, you know, and it does come with backlash because they think that you should just shut up and for me, kick the ball and just play. But, you know, that support group also pushed me too, because they had an open mind to try to create change too. So these experiences really helped me do what I'm doing right now as well.
Now, Rodney, you're a successful football player. You were the nominee for the 2020 Walter Payton Award. I'm curious, how often do you find yourself confronting racism? Some people may think that, you know, because you're successful, but you don't face the same issues that they face. How often do you think about race in your everyday settings, and how often do you confront racism?
I think, you know, I confront racism, I think, on a daily basis, or more so I think about it, right? As a Black man, as soon as I leave the house, I think it strikes my mind because of what has transpired over the years and for centuries, like we've all mentioned on this call. And so I think that a lot of people assume that because you are an athlete and a high profile individual that this doesn't apply to you. But like I often speak about and have, you know, in several interviews, is that, you know, the moment I leave out of that facility, I take that armor off, I leave those walls, I'm unprotected. I'm just like George Floyd. I'm just like Ahmaud Arbery. I'm recognized as a Black man. And so, you know, there are things that you're taught as a child. I think you learn your place or your skin color as a child. You learn when you get pulled over to be quiet, don't move, sit in silence. And when you think about it, why are we inside? They can't hear you outside of a vehicle, but it's just a simple fact, like turn your music down. It's all the stereotypes that come with being a Black male or female in this country that we all have to like deal with and face. So regardless of my financial situation or my professional career, I am still deemed, and those things can still happen to me at any single moment in my life. And I have to think about those things, not only, you know, myself, but my wife or, you know, my brother and sister, you know, back home in PG County. Like I think about those things because, and now, you know, hopefully, you know, that day that I am a parent, you have to have those conversations with your child. And this is never ending. It's like, when does the conversations end? When do they end? When we can safely tell our kids, okay, you know, when you're addressed with the officer, like, you know, you don't have to worry about these things because of your skin color. But unfortunately, we haven't gotten to that point yet. So we have to continue to almost, I mean, live in fear. And it's uncomfortable. And so it's real, and it's something that I think we all, you know, here today can relate to and have to be aware of as we step out of society, unfortunately.
This question is for everyone here on the panel tonight. What are your thoughts toward the future with respect to racism? Do you think we'll ever get to a point where racism is no longer an issue?
I mean, I want to be optimistic, but I also want to be realistic. And I say this because of, you know, what we're hearing now. And I just think I'm reflecting on what my players and me, because I'm the leader of our players, what I have to deal with because they decided to sit during the national anthem. Okay. We really don't get any support, public support from anybody from this university that I'm in, and I'm okay with that. You get so much backlash from people who want to actually text me, from people who want to email me, from people who want to come on Twitter and say all of these disrespectful things, all because we have different perspective on what the flag represents. And the flag represents it actually, the national anthem supposed to represent unity, supposed to represent unity for all Americans. But we see a different America. We do. Like, I'm going to give you an example. Somebody came on my phone. One of the people that supported our program. He texted me a screenshot of an email that he sent me, and this email was about our players sitting down. How disgusting and disrespectful that this act was, and this was January the 5th. I will always remember this, January the 5th. So he's telling me this, and I'm reading it, and he emailed me, but I didn't get the email. So he just made sure. He made a second effort to text this to me, a screenshot of it. So I read it, and he told us to just stop it because the people that you're trying to reach, basically we're not listening. You're not reaching those people because they're hearing you because of how they feel about the flag. So I responded to him the next day. And y'all know what the next day was, January the 6th. What happened in the state capitol.
Right.
So I emailed him and I just told him, I was like, you're a white male, you're a Southerner, so you're going to see the world much differently than our players and what they're doing. They're peacefully doing that. He's a veteran as well. So I said to him, after I said my piece, and I said, well, tell me what you think about and how disrespectful and disgusting the veterans, because a lot of them were veterans that were down there at the Capitol. How do you feel about what they did? You know what his response was? Everybody has room to improve. Everybody has room to improve. Not condemning what took place, not saying how awful and disgusting that was. Like, you lashed out our players for peacefully doing something, bringing attention to social justice. So that optimism goes out the door when there's a double standard. So I don't think there will be, but I'm going to continue to put prayer on it that somebody in their lifetime will be able to see this world equally, and Black people are treated equally in this world that we live in.
Rodney, how about you? What are your thoughts? Will there be a day, will we get to a point where racism is no longer an issue?
Same as Coach Staley said, I'm just in prayer that, we can reach that day, right? But I think it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of commitment. And I think you're going to have to have a willingness, right, to listen and to learn. I think when we're talking about the opposing race and we're talking about white Americans, like them really wanting to listen to what we've endured and how we feel, and be accepting of that, right? And then figure out, how they can get involved or what they can do to change their communities. Because I think, we are going to continue to fight. We are going to continue to be at the forefront of this no matter what, because we are most affected by it. But until, the other side recognizes our feelings and, that double standard, like Coach Staley spoke about, is removed, and I think a lot of that is just kind of ignorance that exists, then we are going to be stuck in this same place that we are today. And I think the needle has moved because a lot of people have, since last year, had a lot of tough conversations and had to remove friends and confront, bosses. And at one point, nobody was doing that. Everyone was, you're fearful of losing your job, but it's to a point now where, right is right. And I'm no longer going to sit back and allow this to take place or continue to not address this in this manner or recognize us as African Americans who, work for your company. And so I am, though I don't know when that day is going to come, I am encouraged, but a lot is going to have to be done. And like I said, from a lot of my, white brothers and sisters out there, I've seen a lot at the protests. I've seen it. It looks completely different than when it did when our ancestors marched. There is a very diverse crowd out there, and you can see the change. And I think, for myself and my wife, where we have devoted a lot of our focus is on the youth, because, I've lived 30 years of my life, already, and so how can we try to reshape the future? And it's literally, through them. Like we spoke about earlier, they have social media. They're witnessing this. They're bringing it to their parents' attention. Like, talk to me about this. What is going on? And so I think we have to, we try to continue to empower them. And we have an initiative out, called Game Changers that we're getting ready to, push out. And the focus of that is being able to talk and have these conversations with a lot of these youth out here. And it was very eye-opening to me when they expressed to me about the social issues that have occurred in their neighborhood and where they want to see change at. And those are the conversations you want to start building, amongst, the youth now, amongst their peers to, have that dialogue. Let's start it now. Why wait? You know what I'm saying? Like, why wait? A lot of this, people were saying, man, this is the first time I actually, spoke to, my friend in this manner. And it was so much growth. And so I think if we start, with them, then we give ourselves a chance. But, until then, continue to do my part, continue to pray, and just continue to fight the fight, man.
Absolutely. Ray, it looks like you have something that you want to add.
Just for me, I mean, one big thing for me, they both touched on it. I mean, the heart postures of the people got to change. They got to have open ears to hear. For a long time, Black people have put it in songs. They put it in poems. They've acted it out. They've even taken it to the streets in this era. The messaging is there, but if you don't want to hear, you don't want to transform your mind about what people of color are saying, it's going to be very hard for change. I'm optimistic as well and prayerful, as the other two have also said, but change is going to come not merely on our efforts alone, talking about African Americans and Black people, but it's going to come from other people and decision makers who are in position to make change as well. Rodney really touched on that, and that's really vital for me. We all understand the magnitude of what we're going through or what this next generation can go through and what our ancestors are going through. But we also need the other people on the other side of the fence to see what's going on, to really cultivate the change that we're looking for, to address your question.
Talking about the people who are in charge.
Can I mention something?
Sure.
I'm getting my material from Twitter. Like I'm one of 7 Black head coaches in the SEC in women's basketball. That is half. 7 out of our 14 coaches are Black. Mm-hmm. Unheard of, right?
Right.
So the SEC put together this whiteboard, a 30-minute discussion with all of us. Mm-hmm. And they publicize it on Twitter. Mm-hmm. And you get some people to just respond like, why does it have to be about race? Like, why can't you all be just good coaches? Why does race have to come into it? And I said, if we don't talk about race, nobody will talk about race. Like, we didn't talk about race 20 years ago. Well, maybe we did, but when it's white people that are really great at what they do, they don't want to talk about race.
Right.
But I think if we're doing something that has not been done ever in basketball, men's, women's, soccer, or any sport, half. You have to talk about that.
Absolutely.
And us, the 7, we got a chance to change the narrative. We get to write our own narrative when it comes to everything about this league. You're going to have to hear us. We got to say in it. We're even. We don't have a majority. We got to even. And I do think what we do is we've always had to be this way, meaning we've always had to be like fair. Like we've always looked at things as fair. And I'm going to just give you a little bit of how things work. It's almost time for these awards, like these all conference awards and these Coach of the Year awards. You can't tell me that race doesn't play a part in it. You can't tell me that it doesn't. And people may say, no, it's not. No, it's not. Like if for me, I'd have to win the whole thing. Like we couldn't lose a game, meaning we had 16 conference games. If we won 16 conference games and not took one loss, that's when I'm the Coach of the Year. Let us take one loss. Let us take one loss, which we have this year. It's going to be somebody else's. But why? You win 15 games in this league, you should be Coach of the Year. Shouldn't be any question. Shouldn't be, this coach did this or that or whatever. It should be yours, and yours, if nobody else has lost that many games. But it's a different narrative when it's somebody else that has those same 15 wins. So for me, we got a chance. If one of us wants to be the Coach of the Year, then we should make her the Coach of the Year.
Right.
If she deserves it. But see, I'm going back to the fairness thing again, right? But they don't think that way. They're going to put who they want to put up there and let the chips fall where they may. For me, I'm going to get with those 6 other coaches and say, hey, what y'all want to do? Because that's what's happening. That's what's been happening to us for forever. Because this ain't never been done before. It is my job to do that, to make sure that if one of us deserves to win the Coach of the Year, if one of our kids is, neck and neck with somebody else, you got to talk about it, because those are the things that have been talked about with other coaches when we weren't the majority, we weren't the equal.
Ray and Rodney, I saw you both shaking your head as Coach Staley was talking. I'm curious, do you all feel the same pressures to perform at a very high level based on the color of your skin? And if so, how?
For sure. I mean, from don't nobody play soccer where I'm from. This is basketball state. Don't nobody play soccer from my neighborhood. But with that being said, me being in certain circles and seeing certain things from different demographics, because, there's not a lot of people that look like me growing up in America that play soccer. You were taught that you got to do above and beyond. Coach Staley already touched on that from an early. I had that beat into me when I was 3-4 years old, already playing. You can't just be average. And I'm not talking about just in sport, I'm talking about in your education, how you carry yourself. Because she's right. Her experiences are the same experiences of myself. You can't just score 3 goals. You got to score 10 goals to even be thought about. The experiences are there. And even in this matter, as she was talking about the support, something that's going on in soccer, there's a lack of representation. For her to say they're equal, that they have the same amount of coaches in their conference is a blessing, because we need more GMs. We need more head coaches. We need more assistant coaches. You know, there's a lack of representation not only in the on the soccer field, but in the front office. You know, there are brilliant people, there are intelligent people, there are people who are more than qualified to do the job, but not getting the opportunities. Like Coach Staley said, they can tell them they overqualified and then give it to a candidate that didn't do half of what they did, but have representation. So for me, of course, and even in this, not that I had to be bottom up or doctored up with this. When we did a demonstration, we were the first sport that was back regarding all sports, and we went on ESPN and we wore the names of those who have been slain by police brutality on the back of our jerseys, which you can't do in soccer. They don't allow you to change your name. The whole world was shocked, us having 13 different countries. And the reason why I bring that up is I had to be at my best to speak on behalf of my people, because then they'll say, you know, he's ignorant or he can't speak well or all of these other things. Not only do we got to be the best in our sport, but how we carry ourselves. And that's always, you know, unwanted. And it's not even pressure at this point for me. It's the norm, but we shouldn't, and the young people, like Rodney said, shouldn't have to undergo that to just be great in their environment. They should just have to focus on their sport or their education without all these unwanted pressures as well.
Right. Rodney, I have a unique question for you. You saw it up close and personal with Dawn Staley being passed over for the Eagles head coaching job this offseason. What are your thoughts on the state of Black NFL coaches? You know, following up on this conversation we're having now. After this year's coaching carousel produced only one Black coach, how do you feel about Deuce being passed over, and then just the overall state of Black NFL head coaches?
Yeah, I think it's a kind of perfect segue, and it was very eye-opening listening to Coach Staley when she said that half of her conference was represented by Black coaches. That's a huge honor, and I think that should be publicized more. Honestly, because this is my first time, hearing about it. And so I think that needs to carry over into, like Ray said, into, his sport, as well as, NFL, where I am, NBA. I mean, it's relevant and it needs to be addressed. And so it was upsetting, I think, when a lot of us felt as though Deuce was qualified. He put in his time. He is a former player. He's a great leader. Exemplifies all of the qualities I guess you're looking for in a head coach from my point of view, as well as other players. And to see that he didn't get, the job in a sense was, I think it rubbed us the wrong way. And it's the narrative that we continue to push is that for some reason we're just not enough, and that's tough to hear. It's I'm only good enough to be an assistant. Why am I not good enough to be in a position of power of head coach, a GM, a commissioner, a president of an organization? Why is that? Why do we struggle to have those representations in the Black community? Mm-hmm. And so you see it all across the league, man, and it's a cycle, because I think maybe one Black coach was given the opportunity, and that was the coach for now the Houston Texans, who was with Baltimore. I forget his name, but I really don't know, man, what to say. My biggest question is, why aren't we good enough? Because we qualify, we have everything that you're looking for. You tell me that, but when it comes to a head coach, that we just aren't afforded that opportunity for what? And just, piggyback on conversation we were just having, man, this whole the margin of error, I think, for all of us is like so small as Blacks. And as Ray said, it was instilled in me at a young age that as a Black man, you cannot settle for mediocrity. You have to do more. You cannot look at yourself as just, an athlete. You have to excel at everything, education, sports, to give yourself that opportunity and ability to be able to succeed in life, because things are not going to be just handed to you. That's not going to happen. You have to work for everything. And so that is how we're molded and how we live our lives. We understand things aren't going to be just handed to us. So we work for it. And when you work so hard and you do everything the right way, and you get to that point where you feel like you're very deserving of it, and then they still tell you no at the door, where does that really leave you? And so for a guy like Dawn Staley, he felt like his ceiling was reached, with the Eagles, unfortunately, and he had to move on, in hopes that he will be viewed how he should, and get that fair opportunity elsewhere.
Now, you all.
I just wanted to say one thing, and to Rodney's point, even for me, in the tenure of the career that I'm in right now, I went to school to get my higher education, my master's degree. I went to the Harvard Business School to accelerate and understand business practices, because there is always life after sport. And this is an example that's saying you're trying to position yourself already, so they can't say, well, you don't have this credential, or you don't understand this mechanism, even if it is in sport, but just in anything in life. Because I said, I just want to give proof to the testament of what he's saying, that, I'm still accelerating in life while I'm still playing at a high level and still doing everything that I'm supposed to post-career. And these are the things that we always have to do. We don't get grandfathered into some of these roles, or they're able to segue a lot of times from playing, coming off the field right into a front office or a coaching position. So I just wanted to say that without these credentials, or being able to interview well, or knowing the right people.
I appreciate you sharing that testimony. And as we near the end of this conversation, you all touched on this point. And when it comes to personnel decisions and league policies, those decisions come from the very top, and oftentimes they don't look like you and I. How much of the responsibility to create change falls on Black players and coaches versus ownership and the front office, if you had to put a number on it?
I mean, I would say the ownership of it all falls on us as players. If I'm being real, we have to lead by example first. I believe, we have to practice independent Black representation, agents and financial advisors and managers, all of those sorts of things, that we preach and that we just spoke about, is giving those qualified individuals opportunities. And when you can see a Cam Newton or Deshaun Watson or Patrick Mahomes, like those guys have Black representation within their team and their party, that changes the narrative. You know what I'm saying? That, like, because we instantly think that for some reason, sometimes our own, they aren't qualified for the job. Or it's the fact that we just don't know many. And so I think it's on us as players to really push that message and that narrative. I know for me, my entire team that I can think of that plays an intricate part is Black. My agent is Black. He owns his agency. My financial advisor is Black. My publicist is Black. And so that's just the way that I've kind of conducted my business. And I'm more than good. I have money in the bank. I've reached a top deal in my career. My money's growing for me. I'm Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee because of the work that we're doing in the community, thanks to my publicist. So you can excel, in life with Black representation. Look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Their coaching staff was Black, and they won it all. And that's huge. They had to publicize that and give credit, because not many people that think that you can get it done with, whether it's a solely based Black team around you or a very diverse team like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And so it's on us, and it's our responsibility as players to really push that message, I feel like.
I want to get to a couple questions before we sign off for the night. This one is for Coach Staley. Is there a story, Coach Staley, that you can share about what you dealt with as a player that you talk about the most with your young Black women athletes about now?
I mean, for me, I'm so removed. I mean, these kids are so young; they don't even know me as a player. They only know me as a coach. But what I really try to instill in our players is the disciplined person can do anything. I mean, I've been one that's been truly disciplined to basketball, probably more so than anything in my life. Any person, I gave it up for the game. Mm-hmm. And you know, and I just try to instill that in them. Also, you know, I also instill that's one of my life mottos is the disciplined person can do anything. My other life motto is, and it resonates in me as a player, is you have to do what you don't want to do to get what you want. That is, you know, in basketball, sports, life, education, because everybody doesn't really want to do all the things it takes to be successful, but they always want they want the goal. Mm-hmm. But I've been fortunate to work with some very highly motivated individuals that they just listen. They don't argue. Sometimes I want them to argue back with me and just kind of give me a little bit of something, but they just take in the information mm-hmm. and utilize it in their, you know, in their skill sets, and you know they're good, highly competitive, highly motivated, mm-hmm. and I don't know what I'm gonna do, you know, when I don't get that player that's as motivated, because I'm falling in love with, you know, them just having a pro mentality. Mm-hmm. So that's what I just try to instill in them. Just to be disciplined in whatever they want to be successful in.
Right. Next question. This one's for Ray. What initiatives that the MLS, PA, Players Association, BPC, and SCORE are working on excite you the most? Or do you think that will have the greatest impact on increasing representation in American soccer for marginalized groups?
For me, they just recently announced a new VP of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for the representation of all people. As you know, soccer is the world's game, so there's a collective group of people. So they're already off to a good start. I mean, this is the 25th year of Major League Soccer. They should have had one, but you know, like we've been saying, we're making strides. We're trying to change the narrative of the future. But something I'm really passionate about is just the grassroots mechanisms that we're looking to hopefully build. But also, like Rodney said, SCORE, the Black Players for Change, as well as the MLSPA, has been trying to do a great job of making sure the right qualified, I have to use that word, qualified individuals are put in place to be head coaches, assistants, you know, CFOs, any C-suite type of person for an organization if they feel that they want to enter the realm of Major League Soccer. I know in DC there was a newly elected predominant woman who I believe used to work for the Sparks for a time out in LA, but just new vice president as well. But those initiatives I'm more excited about right now because they're already in the works. And starting to see more representation of people who look like me, both men and women, in Major League Soccer. So that's amazing for me. That's the thing that I'm most excited about right now.
Let's close out on this one note, and we'll keep it short as we're running up against 7 p.m. I want to thank you all for joining us again tonight for this very important conversation. What final message would you like to leave with the people watching here tonight on the conversation about social justice in sports?
For me, be a part of the change that you want to see. I tell myself that every day, although it's tough some days. You are the catalyst in your community, in your circle, in various conversations that you have that can be the spark for change. So that's for me. That's what I want them to know.
Rodney?
I would say speak up and speak out. Be brave and be courageous. be the example. Don't sit by and wait. Make things happen and be at the forefront. Allow your voice to be heard.
I would say for the people who don't believe Black people are treated unfairly, is to listen. Or if you feel somebody is disrespectful, disrespecting the flag in any way, don't just say, stop doing it. Ask why. Ask why. We don't stop to ask why enough. And if you were to do that, you'll probably open yourself up to a different perspective. And it doesn't mean that you have to agree, because you can support without agreeing. And that's what people don't quite understand. Support without agreeing is a true and real possibility.
All strong messages. Coach Dawn Staley, Ray Gaddis, Rodney McLeod, I want to thank you so much. It has been a pleasure speaking with you all tonight. And thank you for joining us on Inquirer Live. We appreciate the efforts that you are making by using your platforms to help create the necessary changes needed in our country and around the world. Thank you.